Welcome back to the channel. I am in the igloo at the back of our property, and in this week's video I'm going to be pouring a concrete tabletop to replace this old wooden one. There's a bunch of tips and tricks along the way, and I may or may not shatter this concrete top. So stay tuned, but let's get into the build. So step number one is building the form that we're going to pour the concrete into. So I'm going to be using some 3/4 melamine for this. I like melamine because it doesn't stick. So whether you're doing concrete or epoxy, your finished product and your slab at the end is going to pop free super easily, and it's relatively cheap. So my slab is going to be 5 foot by 2 foot. So I'm going to make the mold to those dimensions, but obviously you can do, it's a 4x8 sheet, so you can make the mold to whatever size you need. So the table that I'm building, like I said, is going to be 5 foot by 2 foot, but here I'm ripping the melamine oversized so we can get some extra pieces out of it to make the sides of our form. Cuts like this can be super sketchy at the table saw because it's a heavy piece, it's pretty long, and we're cross-cutting it, which means the majority of it is hanging off of the table. So I like to just prop it up. I'm using some foam that I have laying around. You can use 2x4s or anything like that. The trick is to support it pretty close to each side of the cut so it doesn't cave in and bind on your blade, but just clamp down a straight edge, use your circular saw, and cut it down to size. And adjust the height first so you don't cut your table. So for the size of our form, we need to cut them to whatever thickness we want our table to be, plus the thickness of our material. So I want an 1.5 inch thick concrete slab, and I'm using 3/4 inch material, which means my sides need to be cut to 2¼ inches. I think that made sense. Pretty simple. If it didn't make sense, you should probably buy a table. All right, so the last thing we need to do with our form made is caulk our corners. So our caulk is going to do two things. It's going to make sure our water and our concrete doesn't leak out of the form all over our work surface. And it's also going to provide the radiused edge that's going to be on our finished tabletop, because we're going to take the slab out of this, flip it over, and that's going to be it. So it's important you take your time when you're caulking to make sure that it's smooth, you like the way it looks, because the concrete is going to take shape of whatever this mold looks like. So if your caulk looks horrible, it's got a bunch of jagged, stringy edges, and so is your tabletop. All right, I got all of the caulk in, got it all smoothed out, went through 1,000 paper towels as usual. But as you can see, it's all rounded over. There's no big gaps or any rough spots in the caulk. That's gonna allow us to give like a bad edge on our finished table. So I'm gonna give this a little bit to cure up. I'll probably leave it till tomorrow, come back, and we'll start pouring concrete. All right, so it's the next day. Our form is ready to go. Couple things just before we get started. I'm gonna be mixing just in this mixing trough here. I'm gonna be using a garden hoe. I got my water all ready to rock. And I'm gonna be using Quikrete 5000. So it's the white bag. I've found it's like $1 more than just your entry-level basic bag of concrete. But I like this because it's a little bit stronger, and it's made for like pouring slabs or tabletops or finishing. It finishes really nice. It dries super white. So I've found this is well worth the extra $4. So we're gonna be going with that. So yeah, we're ready to go. So I'm gonna give this one last vacuum, rub a little bit of paste wax in here just to give it a little bit extra slick surface to make sure our concrete slab comes out. And then we're ready to pour. So I did forget to mention as well, to figure out how much concrete you need, you can just go online, just Google concrete calculator. There's a bunch of different versions out there. You type in just your dimensions, how thick you want it, and it'll tell you exactly how many pounds, how many bags, everything you need to know right on the site. All right, so first bag, first mistake. Not really a mistake though. So I just mixed this a little bit too wet. So it's just kind of soupy. So it's no big deal. I'm just gonna take a little bit more concrete from the next bag, put it in there, thicken it up a little bit, and then we'll be good to go. So when I'm pouring slabs for tabletops, I like to pour one layer relatively thin. So this is 2 bags, and the whole table is going to be 4. So I'm pouring it about halfway. And what I'm going to do is make sure I get this really worked in, really good into all the corners and the sides and up the sides, just to make sure we don't have any voids in our final product. So I just got some gloves, take our hands, and just make sure, give it like a little, almost like a little vibrate, and get it really worked in. Spread it around a little bit. All right, so we got it worked in relatively flat. So there's a couple steps right in the middle of the pour. The first is, we're obviously pouring bag after bag. Rather than pouring it all and vibrating it to get the air out, I like to do it with each layer that we add. That way those bubbles that we're trying to get to the top and pop, they don't have to go as far. So I'm gonna vibrate this like crazy. There's a bunch of different ways. You can use a sander without any sandpaper on it along the sides. You can use a hammer, give it some taps, and I've seen Sawzall as well without a blade, run it along. I'm gonna kind of do a combination of everything. This is by far the most important step. I've poured a lot of these. Some are like glass, some I've had a lot of voids with air bubbles. So I'm gonna take probably a half hour, go around and just vibrate the heck out of this thing, trying to get that bottom perfectly smooth. All right, so now we're reaching the point where it's getting pretty full. It's probably the last bag if I'm lucky. If not, I do have that 4th bag. But I'm going to take a screed, which is a little bit longer than our form. We're just going to rock it across and work it as we go down, making sure that we get the concrete flush with the top of the form. As you can see here, we got some spill out. So we're going to take this down a little bit because it's a little bit high. Again, pull the concrete back if it's too high. Fill in any low spots you see, and we'll get it smoothed out with this 2x4. So we got a good probably 25, 30 minutes of vibrating on this tabletop. Like I said, the Sawzall is the best way to go. I got a ton out of it. This is like the third pass getting bubbles. So I'm not seeing really any more coming through. So fingers crossed, when we demold this tomorrow, we should have a really clean surface. So it's the next day. This thing has had over 24 hours to cure. It's not soft, but it's not fully cured by any means. I did come out here last night, stripped off a couple of the sides just to take a peek, and overall, I think it's pretty good. I mean, we do have some bubbles, which honestly, I can't even believe I vibrated this thing so much, but the top is what actually matters. So let's get the rest of this form demolded. Let's flip it, and let's see what the top looks like. All right, it came out dead perfect, exactly how I wanted. There's very little holes at all. This thing is like glass. However, I'm sure you just saw when I was flipping it, I was trying to get my fingers out, put all the weight here on this corner, and it snapped. So our corner broke. So really the question is, do I try and fix this and make it almost like a character / conversation piece, or do I do that entire process over and pour a new slab, which I don't really want to do. So we'll see. Let me think about it, think about how I can try and fix this, and we'll check back. So I just fixed it, and what I did was I just lined the brake back up where it would go, drilled it back into the slab with some wire mesh acting as like a piece of rebar, put some epoxy in there as well to make it hold, and I was going to call it good. It's kind of just, you know, a little character piece, but I don't think I'm going to leave it. I think I'm going to break it back off and pour that corner back. I'm not going to pour a whole new slab or anything. Hopefully, fingers crossed, it'll match good. It's the same bag of concrete, so we'll find out. But yeah, I think I'm just going to patch it back in, and hopefully it matches. So let me know down below in the comments, would you have left it with this solution, or would you repour it as well? So I'm gonna get this back in the mold, mix up some concrete, and let's pour this thing. So I've given this slab about 4 or 5 full days to cure. Now I don't think it's 100% cured, but it's good enough to transport this. So I'm going to be moving this solo about probably 60, 70 yards over to our igloo and try and get this thing into place without breaking it again. That's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed that one and maybe even picked up on something that you can incorporate if you're going to be building one of these yourself. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We have a ton of really cool videos coming very soon. As always, I appreciate you guys watching. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time.